Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SA Accounting Academy. Here's a short clip on one of our previous webinars. I hope that you really do enjoy it.
On your coffee, I hope you've got your popcorn and your chips and your snacks, or maybe you are healthy and you've got your carrots and your cucumber and your cottage cheese, whatever you feel you need to get through the day. It is going to be a long one. I am going to be giving, just from a housekeeping perspective, I'm going to be giving 10-minute breaks pretty much on the hour. I think I'm going to need it, you're going to need it, and we will get through this. It's going to be an interesting one. I have read the blurb as being IFRS for SMEs. Okay. Theo, if you're printing these notes, please go and support your printer because it's going to be churning them out. But it is going to be an interesting session. I think it's a session for us to chat about. I always love this audience because you actually talk to me. I don't feel so lonely. I actually have some engagement from you and you put your comments in the side. It is a refresh on IFRS for SMEs. So today, it is an accounting update from an IFRS for SMEs perspective. Okay. And there is some stuff happening. We're in the middle of a state of flux. So I've brought you some conversation and some issues to talk about. And I'm also going to take us through as a refresh. Okay. I never think it's a bad idea just to revisit the statements. Sometimes we are on automatic pilot and we forget a few things, and it's good just to run through the standard and pick up a few issues here and there. So that is really what the morning is going to be about. I was sitting thinking about it, trying to figure out what I should or shouldn't do and how I should or shouldn't focus this. And so I'm gonna tell you what's on the cards where IFRS for SMEs is at the moment, and then I will run through and just recap where we are. Okay, so it's a little bit of where we are going to and where we are coming from today. So the future and the past with the present worked into it. Okay. So I do see some of you are looking for the notes. I do know that the notes should be on your profile, as always, and I hope you're warm. I hope you're safe. I hope load shedding isn't keeping you on your toes too much. And yeah, I've got quite a day of chatting and talking today, so let's get started. So it is the IFRS for SMEs accounting update. Okay. This is me on when I'm a little bit more done up. As you can see, it is still me. So I hope that we are all good and we're all well. Somebody's just commented, yes, 159 pages. That's what I was saying. If you're printing these out, good luck. The first half really is the more important issues. The rest of it is going on to, like I said, a refresh and a recap. But there are some discussions that I want to go through, which I think we really need to stop and think about the implications of this in the first half of what's coming. Okay, of what's coming down the line. So this is who I am. This is where you'll find me and what I'm about. So the course outline, the main areas that we're going to spend the first bit of time on is the current status. After this, the second half, which actually isn't in the table of contents, I actually didn't go back and fill that in, is just going through a contiki tour of the standard again, just picking up some elements, some challenges, some issues that if you're complying with IFRS for SMEs, some points to stop and look at and think about. I'm pretty much going to use it as a walking tour of IFRS for SMEs, and pick up some elements and points that, for example, I'm having issues with when I'm reviewing financials, when I am compiling financials for different companies. I didn't want to, earlier in the year, not so long ago, I did a compiling of financials under COVID. So I was reluctant to sort of pull out the same tried and true mechanism that I had then, which is, looking at financial statements under COVID. But it is the reality of what we are in at the moment. So I wanted to just really get back to basics a little bit and get back to the heart of preparing financial statements using IFRS for SMEs, and also looking at this comprehensive review and looking at the areas where they're focusing on. I don't know about you, but when you go to an update and they only tell you about what's changing, I want to be reminded of where I'm coming from. So I thought, well, let's have the conversation about where their focus is, what this focus means for us, and then go back to where we are right now. So you can get a sense about where the two are going from. Okay. So that's just a bit of a thought. So without much further ado, let's get into the work. Okay. So unless you've really haven't been paying attention, maybe you've been working on tax and working on COVID survival. IFRS for SMEs last year went through. We had a request for information. The common deadline was the 27th of October. I was actually involved in one or two committees where we drafted comment letters that were submitted, and it was due. Okay, so let's just take a moment and think about IFRS for SMEs. 2006 is when we got the first exposure draft on IFRS for SMEs. 2009 is when we got the finalized standard. 2015 was the first time IFRS for SMEs was reviewed, and the new standard was released, effective for 2017. 2017, we were told that there would be a 2-year implementation phase, and then they would review it. So they were supposed to review it 2019. So asking for information in 2020 was kind of right on schedule. Okay, so this is really the third time that they're going back and looking at the standard from, if you count the very first time they drafted it as round 1. The standard has only been around for 15 years if you count the very first version of it in the exposure draft in 2006. So it's a fairly young, fairly modern standard, okay, and this has been a comprehensive review of the standard, and they went back to the drawing board and they asked some questions. Now, the one question they asked, which the committees that I was involved in when we were drafting comment letters was extremely concerning in the South African space, was alignment with full IFRS. Okay, so the big question in this comprehensive review, and this is something that we're going to be really digging into for the next hour or two, is what does it mean, or what are they looking at when they speak about alignment to full IFRS? So with the request for information, this is really what they threw at us. And it was a 75-page document, asking a whole lot of questions and giving a whole lot of thought into why they were asking certain questions. But they were really getting quite concerned about the gap and the gulf that was starting to be created between IFRS and IFRS for SMEs. And I can sort of understand the concern, but then at the same time, I kind of felt that was the purpose of IFRS for SMEs. So if we go back to when IFRS for SMEs was first given to us in 2006, and I don't know how many of you on this webinar were around in that day. I remember it as clear as daylight because I felt as sparkly and as excited as a child on Christmas morning, running down to go and see what this big wrapped present looked like, because we had been promised it, we had been asking for it. It was in response to demand, really, because at that point, 27 countries in the European Union alone had different standards for IFRS for SMEs, okay? And at that point, when we unwrapped the box back in 2006, and remember that South Africa was the very first country in the world to adopt the exposure draft as our SA GAAP for SMEs. I don't know if you remember that, but we were the very, very first country in the world to push ahead. And actually, we were so desperate for IFRS for SMEs that we took on the exposure draft as our finalized standard, as SA GAAP for SMEs back in 2006. And when we unwrapped this present, this big sparkly box with a bow on top, we were gutted, okay? Because back in 2006, when we read the IFRS for SME standard as it was written, it was exactly the same as IFRS, or that's how it felt, okay? We didn't see or feel the difference between IFRS and IFRS for SMEs 15 years ago. Okay, 15 years ago, this felt like a very empty box. But the promise to us was that IFRS for SMEs would hold steady. Okay, so it would hold the fundamental concepts of IFRS steady.
I hope that you enjoyed that video. For more of our webinar videos, go to www.accountingacademy.co.za. Thank you and have a lovely day.